It's great to have you all here. I'm Martti Raivar and working at Aalto University at Department of Art, and I'm a professor of art education. And because we are so few, I think we can comment without raising hand or ask questions. But the program is, I have planned so that I will introduce first some of programs or projects which are related to blended learning and distance learning, and then beside this presentation I will introduce and ask Andreas and Minna present some of the projects, and then Teemu and Hans some of the projects, and we could have a discussion around those themes. If it's okay, I will start sharing the screen so that you can. I don't know, is it? Now it should be full screen. Somehow I have your images in the middle, so I try to move it to the center. Sorry. I don't know why it's happening so that you all are in the middle.
It's okay.
We can see it perfect though, Martti.
Sorry.
We don't have the same problem though.
Okay.
Maybe you can't see your own slides.
Okay. Okay. Let's hope so. Okay. The reason I structured my presentation in the way is that somehow this Corona situation reminded me my situation about 20 years ago. I was working as a professor at the Department of Art Education, and we got some extra resources to extend our education, and then a couple of people, leadership decided that, okay, let's do something totally different, so that let's try to make this master program totally based on e-learning and distance learning and how it could happen. And I was very impressed of the idea and very eager to develop it forward. But suddenly I found out that I'm leader of the program. So I was not so much involved in ICT. I was more focused on assessment and evaluation and crit sessions of fine arts. But suddenly I was in front of situation that I'm leading and planning master program, which is based on distance learning. So it was a huge learning process and a little bit the same situation that I was forced to do something which I was not prepared. And as I mentioned, this master program was based on external funding, which was great because we had nice resources to do things differently. And this program was meant for BA and MA, BA students having fine art, art and design or teacher education on the background, but most of the students, 3/4 parts were fine artists or art and design professionals. And they were expected to have MA degree because most of them were teaching on Polytechnics, University of Applied Sciences, Art and Design area, or somewhere in upper secondary school or secondary school, but mostly in different kind of institutions, but some were also freelancers. And we got totally 3 programs. It was 3 years master program, which was able to study alongside your own work. And the situation we took as a starting point was that we had to attract teachers to become involved, and that was not easy because it was not the situation that you were expected to teach distance. So many teachers, especially art teachers in our institution, said that it's not possible to teach fine arts or art and design distance or based on e-learning, because there are materials and many things you have to learn face to face. And so we put a lot of effort to focus on expertise and ownership of those teachers, that it's your teaching, not something which is pushing, coming externally. And also that course contents and competencies were based on learning and not thinking that how to make everything digital. And so also that there is not only one format, there are several ways to make excellent e-learning based courses, and focus is enhanced creative process of teaching. And also taking students as partners and co-learners. And the most, the thing people mostly be aware to teachers was that this is a delivery of digital course contents, or somehow now we have an easier way to control learning outcomes. And I think it was somehow understandable. And also that when we are doing these courses, it's a kind of experiment that you can take risks, and there is always the possibility of failure, and that's okay. And progress by taking small steps, and also understanding, if you look at the situation 20 years ago, there was a big pressure to build a kind of mega virtual learning environment. So big companies were building these environments and everything was connected, but how we could keep a kind of Lego tool method so that we have blocks which could be connected and make things more scale smaller, and try to find these interfaces, how these blocks could be connected. And on that time, it was not easy. Even internet connection was very slow, and you always heard this nice voice of what is it? This no, I missed the word.
Modem.
This no, okay, but anyway, the connection was not based on fast internet, so there was a small box in every home, and it took a lot of time to get this connection. And
the modem.
Okay, modem, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then we put a lot of effort on course production based on teamwork, so that there were several people working together and helping each others. And I think it was for many teachers, it was a kind of easy way to discuss about their pedagogy. Teachers are mostly working quite alone, and very seldom they are asked to tell about their teaching and key ideas about their teaching. And this was a kind of easy way to face these pedagogical questions, because there was this technology between. So it was not question of someone's personality or personal way of doing things, but reflecting it through technology. And of course, this kind of planning made teaching process more public and more open. And one of these key things was this mentors theme. We had 5 regional peer groups of 12 students and 2 mentors for each team. And we had continual meetings with these mentors, and it was a kind of group to reflect what is happening, what is functional, what is not so good. And in the beginning, we also had 1 week period, which was totally based on face-to-face teaching in a sense, but mostly it was having fun. So one day we rented a sailing boat and went to the sea over the whole day, eating and drinking. And one day we took a boat to Tallinn, Estonia, and visited there in some museums. One day in Fiskas, which is around 100 kilometers from Helsinki. So having different kind of occasions to get to know each other, change ideas informally, and get to know how people react, behave, and so on. And that was a kind of basis for online or e-learning based collaboration. So you knew someone, you are not a virtual feature, and you are real people. And one professor, Erno Lehtinen from Turku University, is using the concept power of immediate shame. So you shame not to be existing online or when using e-learning tools, because you know that it's a real nice person there behind. And we also put a lot of effort on making existence or presence visible, so that we had student profile on contact cards. Everyone took a picture from the study place at home and edited this profile. We had image galleries for courses sharing and documentation. On that time, we didn't have social media tools, so this was the only way to share your images. And then we had online feedback system, which was also open real-time summary, including open real-time summary. So students were seeing how these pillars were rising or going down depending on their feedback. And it was a pressure to organizers to make things better, because we all the time knew what is their feedback. It was course-based, but also term-based. After the fall term and after the spring term, they gave feedback of the whole. And then we had different kind of course, most of the courses were based on totally distance learning, but some courses which were a kind of mix. And this is an example of fine art course module of 20 ACT credits. And for instance, in this case, there was a artist professor who was living in Turku, and I said that, okay, if you come to our program, you have to travel from Turku to Helsinki only once or twice a week, and now you are traveling 4 times a week. And so we built a studio to his gallery in Turku, and a couple of cameras and all these things ready for him. And so he was teaching from Turku, and students sent I didn't mention that all the students were living around Finland. So this was very, I think the northeast was just on the north part of Finland in Inari and somewhere in Hanko. So it was the whole country from north to south and from east to west. So this teacher was teaching in his studio in Turku and using different kind of elements, and then sharing those elements. They were introductions, lessons, assignments with workshop teachers who were having these face-to-face workshops, sometimes over a week, and sometimes in the summertime 1 week, and so on. And when we asked students the feedback, they said that it was more intimate, more personal way way to learn compared to studio working, contact studio working, because teacher was totally focused on them. when students sent their drafts and visual works digitally to a platform, teacher was able to prepare for these personal feedback sessions, and then after each term, students sent their sketchbooks, real sketchbooks to him. So in this case, at least, it was working quite well, having these face-to-face sessions. And then we also tested Second Life environment for exhibitions, just trying to focus on interaction and dialogue. So having grids there, by the way, the professor is this Vishnu Grunfeld, this having this big tail. and people had their virtual avatars. They had their avatars, and then perhaps you know that in Second Life, it's also acoustic space. So you were able to hear when someone is behind you. So the voice was not only, it was space-based voice. And we had a lot of playful experiments testing boundaries, for instance, having online connection from homes beside these avatar features and so on. And also understanding how this kind of visual environment scaling and materials and so on can be preserved and presented. If you think the course production, of course, it took a lot of time to know each other, and it was also important to have these discussions of core concept and working methods, and this is concerning also international programs or projects, that when you have different backgrounds and different concepts, it's very important to have this kind of dialogues. And of course, these timetables were somehow problematic, not within Finland, but when we had also international projects connected, I will describe later. Then, if we think teachers mode, some teachers were quite easily adopted, and they were developing huge improvements and great ideas, but many teachers were struggling with the existing teaching culture and education system, so that they were so stuck on contact teaching. It was very difficult for them to change their pedagogy and understanding curricula differently at course level. Then although we had a lot of advantages and progress, it's important to understand these pedagogical questions of learning still exist. E-learning or distance learning or blended learning is not a solution as such. So how to support creativity, artistic process, visual knowledge building, and so on, it's always there. And cooperation between schools is as demanding as before. So there are these cultural differences and so on. And I think I like mostly courses having at least a couple of days contact teaching, having this kind of elements involved, not everything online, but how it could be arranged, there are different possibilities. And especially for students, this illusion of freedom and freedom of time and place is very tricky. That if you have family and you are studying at home, you have to take your children from kindergarten or make them dinner or whatever, and you think that between these things you have half an hour and 1 hour time to study. It's a kind of illusion. It means most of the students had to take some period which is when they were totally focused on studies. Otherwise, it was not working. Okay, and lastly, what could be done differently is I think that how we could put more emphasis on characteristics of art and design education, so that develop these kind of things. And now you have to remember that this situation was around 15 years ago. Now we have more variety of tools and possibilities. And also that keep interaction and dialogue on the top, so that it's not delivering contents or whatever, but key question is dialogue. And also that if students are co-creators, how you give them enough freedom, and also it means a little bit uncertainty to teachers that they don't know exactly what's happening. But it's the same with face-to-face situations. It's nothing new. And perhaps a couple of things I already mentioned is that this idea of neutral space, that when you are using e-learning or distance learning tools, it's easier to discuss about pedagogy and personal development of pedagogy. And also from the standpoint of leadership, how to have approach which is more scenario based, not giving rules or structures, but more giving sharing best practices or making alternatives visible, or inspire teachers working in teams and collaborate. And also when you have external partners, especially international partners, it's very important to understand this different expertise, variety of expertise and diversity as a resource. Okay, this was my Virta part, and now I Teemu. Okay, now I have tried to make some kind of models of different kind of courses, projects we have done, and this is a kind of prototype model of 6 options. They are interlinking, overlapping, but I tried to clarify somehow that, okay, we may have courses which are totally new, collaboration with partners based on distant learning, and having face-to-face joint workshops. And here I have a couple of examples. One is art education project, which was between our university, Wilhelm de Kooning Academy, Rotterdam, Utrecht School of Arts, and School of Art and Design in Zurich. And we built community art projects based on common planning. In the beginning, teachers met a couple of times, and then we had 2 months working period online and virtually. And we had 5 mixed international groups, totally 20 students, 5 students from each partner, and teachers, so a couple of teachers tutoring each group. And during these 2 months, these international groups were planning community art projects, which was implemented in Rotterdam in lower secondary schools. And we were 8 days there. And after this process, we had local reflection of these things. And here is one image from one school, one project. Actually, it was very interesting when students went to this school, especially this school. The rector of the school said that, have you discussed with the children about your project? And students were, we were not thinking about that at all, and they were very confused, but it was very fruitful situation to face. And next year we tried the same in a more complex way, and we had lessons and we had video meetings and so on during this online and e-learning, distance learning part. But I think in this case it was too complex, but the structure was the same, that after this distance period, common and joint distance period, we had a project in this time in Zurich. But the more you have stuff included in this distance period, the more you have timetables problems, how to fit timetables and connect things together. And in general, this kind of project means a lot of energy for planning and preparing. So it's very time consuming. But on the other hand, I think this kind of dialogue between different schools and different working cultures, it's very fruitful for each school to develop their programs. We had some problems, for instance, concerning in feedback and assessment criteria, because each school have different kind of criteria, but when this was a common course, we had to apply it school-based. And the second example is called Accidental Tourist Guide, which was implemented a couple of years ago between Zurich, Hong Kong, and our university. And I saw very quickly this key structure. First we had, of course, this planning period. Teachers met a couple of times, and actually we met once in Hong Kong also. And then we had local groups and kick-off webinar. And then we had local groups and online lectures, group work, and so on, which was a kind of preparation for the project period in Hong Kong. And then we had face-to-face working tours, lectures, reflection in Hong Kong, and Minna and Andreas will tell it more detailed. It was very interesting methods using Google Street View to make these tours for and then at the end we had exhibitions in the same time, Zurich, Hong Kong, and Aalto in Helsinki, and shared openings virtually. But now I give the floor to Minna and Andreas to tell more deeply about this, and Andreas could tell more about the future plans and actions, what has happened after this project.
Good, I have my voice. Maybe I'll share quickly, Martti, if you stop your share.
When I find it out.
I can stop it as well. There we go.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, so it's actually been really interesting to look back to the Accidental Tourist Guide project now, from this time, having lived a year in this distance learning mode. And I just read my own text from that time, from September 2017, and here I said we hadn't really met each other until the first dinner in Hong Kong, although we had for half a year been working together with the student groups. So I found that really interesting now when looking back to the year when this has become new normal, and I feel like now I'm meeting with you people like Hans and Teemu and everyone, and of course some of you I know from beforehand. But yes, Andreas, please feel free to step in. But I think the interesting, because I think this interesting idea of using the tourist guide, the accidental tourist guide project was kind of initiated by you and Emilia, right, as I can recall. So if you want to tell more about that, feel free. I was checking here.
But just go ahead. I'm interested how to listen to your perspective.
Okay, I can, because it was a really, really cool concept at that time. How we kind of included the students from 3 different universities, and how we initiated them to work in transcultural groups. So the assignment was for the Zurich and Helsinki students to look at Hong Kong via Google Street Map and do research work beforehand without even ever having been in the place. I mean, this might now be a norm to travel through Google Maps. I know some of my students do that actually at the moment. But so they did exploring the city of Hong Kong through Google Map view. And then I checked that so this is just some of their research material. And now here in February, when we finally then traveled to Hong Kong with the Helsinki and Zurich students, they performed their tourist guide tours. They had some time to plan in intercultural groups. And then the idea was that the visiting students made a tour for the local students, for the Hong Kong students. So kind of, it was a pretty unique way to kind of randomly, I guess the experience of our students was that they randomly had an idea based on their research in Google Maps Street View, and planned this concept of their tour, and then invited the local students from Hong Kong to join. And I can just remember, or can you remember, Andreas, was it through this project, or did they then develop this to a larger project? I just remember these students, Ozan and Valeria, making this kind of fictional tour, which I even believed in for some part, this fictional tour of these locations, and where they kind of mixed reality and a story.
Yeah, they had like every high rise in Hong Kong has a proper name, and they developed storytelling around every name, and it was so nicely made that we believed it. So it was completely fictional.
Mm-hmm. Mm. But this was already, I think, on the second day. We had the welcoming dinner, where I then later wrote that we hadn't really met before, which now seems crazy. But then on the next day already, they had these tours. So it was kind of this way to regroup the people who had never met in person. And that worked as a starting point for those few days that we spent there. And then this led to those, here we can see the timeline of the whole art. There was another project in 2016, and then now I have to skip to page 79. This is the great publication that Andreas has made.
The publication is digital, so in my presentation there's the link.
Yeah, I can post it in the chat soon. So here's the timeline of our accidental tourist guide project, starting from the first meetings and then developing from the student involvement, the lectures, the webinars, to the actual traveling to Hong Kong and this accidental tourist guide project. And then the student worked for just what is that, 4 or 5 days in their groups, developing actually quite impressive ideas and artistic projects in the city. And I will just, here are some of these projects, and I will just look or show you maybe. I think this $100 story was one of the most interesting ones. I don't know what you think, Andreas, but this was basically, the idea was to, basically the idea was to give a taxi driver 100 Hong Kong dollars. That wasn't 100 American dollars. That was equivalent of much less money. But giving that $100 to the driver and asking them to drive you to a location which was meaningful to them, and then making documentation of that process, kind of like having that access to the local, to the city, trying to capture the spirit of this fast, rapidly changing city. So I thought this was a really nice idea. There was, of course, an interesting political undercurrent in this project, from that point of view, that one of the group members from Helsinki was from mainland China, and with this kind of tension between Hong Kong and mainland China people in Hong Kong, and the fact that a lot of the taxi drivers were from mainland China, she had access to those discussions, and I think that made this project really somehow touching and inspiring. Andreas, do you want to talk about some other project, or Martti, do we have to continue? So you have to stop me.
No, it's fine. Maybe it's just to mention that it was always a group of mixed of people from Helsinki, from Zurich, and from Hong Kong, and so there was also a transcultural aspect in all the teamwork.
Yes, that was very important. So basically, they had a really challenging task of meeting, or we had formed the groups beforehand, but when they met within 5 days, they had to have their project developed, and then even we made an exhibition with those projects.
We also had like quite a dense program, because they had every evening they have to publish on our blog. They had to publish about 10 photos and the text of the work they had done, and also a text of the program of the next day. So they had to make like a diary, every group a diary, which was for us very practical, because we get insights. We have printed it out and put it the printouts in our project space, so everybody could have access to the other people's work, and we could use the material for this publication too.
Mm-hmm. And that was it was a super intensive kind of. At some point, I had a feeling that I hadn't seen Hong Kong at all, because it was so intensive with this group of people. And then one day, Andreas told me, "No, go see the sites quick." Because
one thing I want to mention concerning this documentation is that you had a format for that, and I think it was very nice idea that not giving blanket sheet of paper to students, but have a format. You can put images there. Here you need some text. So it was a kind of a seed for the publication and starting point for the publication, because the information was collected based on a certain format. And actually I have used that later in other projects, and it's working pretty well.
Yeah. He was another project officially, where they kind of took a position to the very expensive living and housing Hong Kong. So yeah, really interesting projects. And I agree that the kind of this structure, which was actually, I think, already Andreas developed within your first accidental tourist guide process, right?
Yeah.
And this was really helped to keep together this very tight schedule that the students actually were able to realize these projects in this short time. Well, I also love this project, Looking for Love, where they did research on how and where young people meet, because of so few public locations or small homes for families. It's nice. Okay, I think this is. If you have questions, please do ask. But I'll Teemu.
I have a question. I think this is a super cool project, and I'm sure very useful for the students. But how did you define, as in AADTE we now are expected to have these learning objectives? Did you discuss about it, that what the students will learn or what they can do after completing the course?
Yeah,
Did
yes.
you discuss about it?
Yeah, I think it was under discussion first in the teachers planning section. Like foremost, what I also write in my text in this publication, I think some of the key objectives had to do with how to work in a transcultural group, how to work in another context, how to kind of get access to another cultural environment. So those were, I think, some of the objectives. But then also the objectives also had to do with how to artistically develop like high quality socially engaged work in such a short period of time. And I think that kind of was the challenge for some groups. But these examples that I now showed, I think, managed really well, and also managed to touch some of the like critical points about that city, about that place, and about the cultural conflicts that exist.
Yeah.
But some groups struggled, of course.
Yeah.
This was something I tried to review in my text then afterwards, at least.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about this, that like, and I know that a lot of in art education and in art and design education, there's like, you could call it tacit knowledge. You know that what kind of learning happens, but it's not articulated or written down beforehand, because it's really hard even to put it to the verbal written form, that what are the objectives, and part of things and excitement is also that there might be surprises, which are also kind of a good thing from art and design education perspective. So I find it somehow difficult. I think it's good to try to make the tacit knowledge visible. I'm not against of defining the learning objectives from the beginning, but I'm struggling with this, because then if you go through
I see your point, and I think it's part of the kind of objectives in is that it knowledge is intertwined within the objectives in the sense that it even is that, or we kind of even value that there happens a change in that.
Yeah.
There happens, because a lot of these projects also were kind of processes where it was not that clear. So artistically, if you think of the objectives artistically, we didn't probably define them so well. But then if you think them pedagogically, those were more defined. Andreas, please.
Maybe we have also one perspective as also to get a difference between the virtual space and the real space.
True.
The virtuality and the reality, because you had to develop your tour based on the visuals, not only the visuals, without consulting Wikipedia. and then it was an enormous clash when you stand there and have all the noise and all those things around. This is one thing, and the other thing is the intercultural aspect, that you have been searching for these so-called touristic hotspots, in the way that you fulfill your ideas what exotic Hong Kong should be, and you make your tour based on these ideas. And when you are there on stage, then the colleagues from Hong Kong say, why did you choose this object? Because nearby would be a much more interesting topic.
Yeah, that's true. And that was important what you said of the virtual and then reality, where you have all your senses involved. And then also this, we had a lot of discussion on this, that what are the stereotypes and what are the outsiders use, and then it's totally common and boring for the Hong Kong students. That was interesting.
I want to add a little bit about this discussion about the learning outcomes. In Estonia, we are also victims of this outcome-based education. And when listening to you, I got an idea that maybe we should, when developing our courses, specify what are the learning experience goals, what kind of learning we want our students to have, because they want to get feedback, they want to have fun and so on. So we must specify these core goals.
Of course, and maybe it is more emphasized through those outcomes also in these projects than the artistic outcomes. And also I agree with you that it's not so, maybe with art pedagogical courses, it's not so interesting to talk about the outcome, because the most important actually happens within the process and learning experience. Yeah, I understood you.
Question about the awareness, and I think because your project was in 2017, the awareness what this project is about, when you're in the concept of tourism. Now I think tourism is kind of problematic. Instead, like for instance, we love to travel. I also love to travel, but we also have to deal in every country with immigrants and with refugees. And this political polarization gives an impact. And I want to transmit it now. If you are doing this kind of project, what kind of awareness do you want this for the students that they provide? And I think in terms of this political situation, but now also in our situation where we're in now, is a climate change, where this kind of awareness is. How would you change or adapt your really cool and kind of romantic nowadays when you look at this project? How would you change that in this art educational situation?
I think a couple of things.
I can take.
Yeah, please, Andras.
The whole concept changed. So we have a new concept built on other basic reasons, but also on COVID reasons. Yeah. So maybe I can talk about that in the next presentation a bit more detailed. But sorry, Marty.
I had problematizing tourism, also problematizing tourism, because traveling, I think it takes it all. They're all travelers, but some they are not welcome, and others are very welcome. And also to the group who was there, I think they were in a privileged situation. They were very much welcome, and they could see parts of the Hong Kong that they even didn't receive this kind of hotspots, or they didn't receive tourists. So I think now we look at it in a completely different way, and I would like very much to talk this over with students, to problematize this awareness and what it gives it also in a political sense.
We kind of had the shortcut to the Hong Kong, the specific situation there, Hong Kong being very Western, like the New York of China. Yeah. And then what was happening, what was very actually tragic to one of our colleagues there, and he was the generation who had experienced that change and all that. But then there is the other question of traveling, and I think there has been before pandemic already the tendency of taking the train or taking different formats and finding out alternatives due to the climate situation. But yes.
But also feeling welcome or not feeling welcome, you know, it depends on who you are. And I think that's also very problematic.
True.
Coming slowly back to what Hans said about this learning experiences, I found a couple of examples very interesting in Hong Kong. There was one student, probably she was from Zurich, very skillful, made very skillful drawings. And I think she felt very confident to draw. But then she took a risk and went to draw to one small boutique in front of the boutique and asked that, could I sit here whole day drawing? And she was drawing there, and little by little became more confident to discuss with these people, and they gave her tea and asked him to take some food inside and so on. And that kind of intervention in a way that you are doing art in a boutique, and this art and your process is the key to get in to these people's lives and vice versa. And also the other example that when students were looking these street view photos, they saw something which is interesting in a street, that after the opening hours, all bank entrance, big boutique entrance were totally different, because local people came there and were selling their stuff. So the entrance, it was luxury, and suddenly it was full of different kind of stuff over the night. And this was for the local people so evident that they were not seeing that, but for our students it was something special, that okay, this street view is totally different. And how these tourist guides were opening the eyes of locals, that okay, look at your street is changing. But perhaps Andreas, you could tell about the future plans of how you have changed this concept in shared campus.
Maybe I do also share the screen.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Can you see it, my PDF?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe just to explain this project, which Minna mentioned, was embedded in a program which was called Connecting Spaces. This was initiated by Zurich University of the Art in Hong Kong for several years, and it was driven by Zurich University, and it was quite an expensive project. We have a big space in Hong Kong, and mainly it was project-based. So that means we had about 50 projects comparable to the other one. And this program was stopped after 3 years because of different reasons. And the meaning was that we have to change it into a program which is not project-based, but more sustainable in a way of program-based. So the meaning now is that we have developed a shared campus, so-called. We don't have a physical base station there anymore, and the shared campus is like a virtual campus, which is now built up with 7 different universities, mostly based in Europe and South Asia. So this is one reason, was also, as you mentioned, Karin, before, was this traveling. There was critical thinking about just 20 students fly for 1 week to Hong Kong, and half of the costs are paid by the government. So this was one reason, but also other reasons. We wanted to establish an organization which is not driven by the ZHDK, but it's like driven by the several universities at the same high, at the same financial levels, etc., etc. So this is the follow-up with Shared Campus. It's, oops, how can I? No, so you'll find it on the website. I can publish the link. And one main thing is that Shared Campus has the aim to tackling the issues of global significance. So at the moment, the platform is designed, or the Shared Campus is designed around 5 teams. The teams are critical ecologies, cultures, histories and futures, pop cultures and social transformation, and tools. And then you see the partner universities. And we have also some more partners which are not main partners, but they connected to one of these themes. So I am a member of the theme critical ecology. So now we're coming to the topic we are talking about this session. We plan to make 3 summer schools last years, which should have been taking place in one of these cities. Then COVID came up, and we could realize 2 of these 3 summer schools. We had to cancel 1. And it was very surprising because we thought maybe we have to cancel all the 3 summer schools, but we had an overbooking of 300% for the summer schools. So we said these summer schools take place just online. You can apply for, and we had like 60 applications for 20 places. So it was some kind of surprise, and it went very well. So this year we decided to make 5 summer schools, which are connected to these themes, and 4 of them are taking place only online. So this is like a very surprising result of the situation. But I can't talk more about that because I'm not included in the team with the summer school. What I can talk more is now about the work we do in the critical ecologies team. The critical ecologies team has a big problem also. I come back to your vote, Karin, because we are we want to talk about the critical situation and the ecological emergency that the world is facing now. And at the same time, we want to work together with other teams around the globe. So one topic is traveling, sure. And there are other topics too, which are quite complicated, but this is one of the main topics. We don't have a solution now, but we are some kind supported by the situation that the acceptance of online learning is much better than it was 2 years ago. So far, what we have developed for activities is quite similar to the program of Marty mentioned. So we met together first 2 years ago as a core group of 9 members from Taiwan, from Hong Kong, from Europe. And we met together in Zurich once, and the second time in Sweden. This was very good. We had a lot of fun swimming in the lake, etc., discussing. It was very good to just initiate the emotional relationship between the members. And then the follow-up was just online. So we had a lot of meetings online. We have like a monthly meeting, and we also had we have now like 17 members joining us. So we have a core group which know each one by physical meetings, half of the group, and the other half we have never seen in real. But it works. I can say it's possible to get some kind of a glue in the team, and people can take a step in and have the same same presence and same value as the others. So this is also some kind of surprising. So we decided not to make a summer school. We decided to make more co-teaching and co-lecturing tools in the way that we want to develop something sustainable, and we also want to get into some contacts, how to learn from each other, to learn each field of interests better by co-teaching. And we also want to develop joint programs. So I go to the next screen. So this is our program we have now. So this is some kind of our tools or of the actions we take. Maybe I can go through the list shortly. So one, like, it starts with the most easy accessibility and the most high organizational efforts at the end. So the very easy thing is that we open up some courses in the way they are online anyway because of COVID, and whoever can participate. So this is, for example, study courses where they study literature, they read texts, and people can participate, which is very easy. You don't have more work. Actually, this is an option which we opened up, but I don't know if somebody joined the possibility. So it's very easy, but I don't know if the result is really there. Then we have the attendance of lectures at presentations and colloquia at other universities. So, for example, Bo Seng from University Baptist University in Hong Kong invites me to just have keep an eye on his presentations at the end of the course. And this is some kind of very easygoing. So it takes me half a day, and it's very interesting to see what's going on there. But there's also some kind of, if I have to give some critique, there's also very difficult because I don't have any contexts. I don't know the students, and often there's some kind of very difficult communication trouble. So we have like a lack of good connections, especially to Taiwan. We have, I have my Swiss accent in English, the others have probably their Chinese accent. So it's not easy to communicate, but I think the value is quite high and it's very easy to do. Then we have guest lectures. I think I use it very often, and we have the term that I can invite somebody from the partner university and his salary is paid by his university. So this is like a deal, and I do it quite often. So I have a lot of presentations. I have a look for the other guys who are interested in a similar topic of my course, and then they give lectures from their perspective. And because everything is online, it's really easy done. It's like 1 hour, and it opens up quite a huge field. So this works very well. Then we have guest workshops, which is also very nice online. This workshop is maybe not 1 hour, maybe it's about 1 afternoon or 2 afternoons, which is includes some kind of the students have to do some work or to do some discussions offline and then come back online, stuff like this. Then we have like the further format, we call it conversations. We did it once last year, and we will do another one. We do about eight conversations this year. Conversation is something like guest lectures, but they have an umbrella topic. So we invite people for special on the special topics. For the next conversation will be about art in public space, about the role of ecology and art and public space in the future. And this is like an online hybrid mixture. So my students here will be in Zurich on stage, and the rest of the classes and teachers and lectures will be online. So I will send you the invitation, and then you can participate if you want. So we have an example I can show you. This is this is like our page, the conversation. Then you see all these talks from the last time, and each talk I just maybe can play a bit. You see the setting. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes. Hello, everyone. One more person coming in. So we do have our second guest to this morning, and I want shortly introduce also the place where Sanjayan Ghosh comes from.
And so on, that means that we have these conversations with a group of students here in Zurich. We had the same group in Taipei, and we had lecturers from India, from Australia, from Zurich, and Taiwan, exactly. Then we do another format, which is like the biggest formats probably, is a symposium, which is even bigger than the conversation. It's like a traditional symposium. This one will take place at Taipei National University in December. We also plan summer school next year. And once we do like to plan is we want to design jointly designed courses. So we plan to make a minor program on critical ecologies. And this is a very nice idea, and it's very complicated because we see that we have like a very nice idea of making a minor and also a master program of critical ecologies, which is situated at the shared campus. But then you start, I mean, everybody of us know this problem. If you start to make a minor at your school, you have another competition with other minor programs, and who is going to pay for that, and what is the ETCS you will share, and how can we guarantee the quality with other universities, all this stuff. So this is much harder than we thought. So we stuck a bit in this process, but I think we will have 2 minors in 1 year, one Taiwan and Hong Kong probably, and I hope in Zurich a 3rd one, but I can't say that. So you mentioned that before, Marty. This is to develop stuff like this. It's really complicated because you have another administration in your back, which is focused on a lot of other topics than intercultural collaborations. Then we have maybe one thing is the visibility, because everything is online at the moment and we are so spread away, a shared campus, nobody heard about that. We have a strong idea of making visible what we do. So we have the webpage of Shared Campus. So if you go there, you see it's nearly every talk and every conversation is on the website. So you get the impression that this is a packed program, which is not true, but it looks like, which is quite nice. We have also, we will do publications just for critical ecologies. So this is the publication we start this year with all the programs, with text from the lectures and with research results and stuff like this. This is the reason for this is just to give the whole project some kind of visibility in the way that this booklet will have an ISBN number. You will possibly to place scientific text there and whatever. I think this is a big problem we have. So if you build up some virtual structures, I mean, you get lost in virtual space. How can you manifest your campus? How can you build up some kind of campus which has some kind of familiar social effects, things like this. This is really difficult. Also in Zurich University, 90% of the people never heard about that project. Okay, so maybe just to make the closer topic, I want to show more details in a project I did last year. So this was a workshop, this one, from this sort. So I made a workshop about artificial intelligence and art, and then one afternoon we invited Heather Barnett, which is a member of the team from UCL London, and she's specialized on biological intelligence, especially on the slime mold, which is some kind of a strange acting bacteria. And we had the idea that we double or we share her laboratory in London. So we put the same infrastructure here in Zurich as she has in London, and then she gives the course in Zurich. And that was the first time we did something like this, and this was something quite complicated. The problem was a bit that slime mold is an animal. So she sent me these animals. I have to culture them a month before, and then I didn't act really. So the first time they died, and I have to rebuild them again. It was quite a lot of work, and my kitchen at home was full of this slime. On the other hand, I developed some kind of labyrinth, a maze. Printed it out in 3D and sent it to London too. So we have to share all the equipment. She gives me instructions how to deal with this living species and how to act. And for me, it was about, I would say, like a full work of preparation, just to get on the level to act, not have the same knowledge as Heather, for sure, but just to know how to act in this laboratory. Then we had this afternoon where Heather is giving some instructions, and the students have all these packages prepared. And I think it was quite interesting for the students. It was a good success. They loved it. So the basic idea was that in this labyrinth, the bacteria has to find the food. So they put the bacteria in one corner and the food in another, and then we made like stop motion movies, how to see how the bacteria is moving to find their way. And it's really interesting what kind of intelligence they develop. So the main idea was the term, what do we mean about intelligence? Is it just human intelligence, or is some kind of other intelligence around in the aspect of artificial intelligence? So we had, from the students' view, quite a successful work. From my point of view, it was a really lot of work to do for Heather's perspective. It was a bit a lack of personal contact, and one big problem we had was the lack of informal education. That means she shows something and you look at her and you see what she's doing and you learn from watching. It didn't work out. So this was everybody has to be in spoken or written words. So it was a complete change of the workflow and transmission. Yeah. Okay, this is all I wanted to tell about the topic.
Okay, thank you, Andreas. I think we could have a break now. All right. Now we continue. I have always the same challenge that this. Okay, but forget it. Let's continue with these examples, and now there's an example which is connected also to Teemu and Hans. Actually, Teemu has been involved in many of these international projects we have doing this together, but the prototype B is pretty much the same as A. It's new collaborative course based on joint e-learning modules, but only local face-to-face lessons, not joint sessions. And this kind of projects we did in interface project funded by European Union. Dublin Institute of Technology was one partner, Art Academy of Latvia and our university, and Middlesex University was evaluating the process. And we produced 4 courses, and the first one is about this idea that, okay, it's common course having these virtual blocks or periods, and then face-to-face groups are only locally. But the key point was changing students' outcomes. So when student produced something, they sent it to other group of students in other school, and they continued working based on the works from other school. And then at the end we had common evaluation. And the second format was based on the idea that one partner is producing course, but it's open to all partners, or in Teemu's and Hans' case, or open to all. And this first case was so that we produced 3 courses, totally distance, and it was shared, but having these local peer group meetings. And the second application or way of doing it, it was e-learning workshop, which was led by Teemu and Hans. I was very shortly also involved, very close, little involved. And it was based on Wikiversity, so that the materials were delivered through that. And there was an open call for students. And actually we got totally about 70 students, 50 students, which were so-called external, unofficial students, and 20 of our students. And what we promised was that we keep all course materials, lectures, assignments to all students, but we are not able to give feedback and credits to external students, although we gave them an official course diploma that they have done this course. So it was less administration, not so many access problems and so on. And the idea was that these external students did the assignments as our own students, and all outcomes were shared on virtual environment. So everyone saw the results of student works. And Teemu and Hans can tell more about that, but if I say shortly, what was my impression is that this kind of external input pushed our own students to make they work better. So there were very good examples, and some of these external students were so active in discussions that they pushed also our students forward. And at the end we had a shared feedback session, and everyone showed what we did. But now I give the floor to Hans and Teemu, if you tell more about your experiences concerning this course, and more widely about this kind of open courses or open course materials or modules. Please.
Yes, thank you. We have prepared a few slides as well, so I will share the screen.
Okay.
Just when Hans is putting up the slides, that we haven't, we've been continuing working on that, maybe more from the research and theoretical point of view. And and we have some new ideas. We've been able to structure these things a bit better, but I think what Martti was explaining was very good introduction to this.
Yes. Are my slides on?
Yeah,
They are.
Okay, so we are going to tell shortly about our perspective to online learning and open web, and then perhaps have a discussion with you. And at first, I personally think that this COVID pandemic is the best thing that has happened to higher education in last 30 years since the invention of the web. And it really encourages us to rethink how we teach and learn in universities. So it's a really, really good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I want to add to that when we talk about the web now, it is a certain idea, and we emphasize the open web, and that means not only the technology, but the infrastructure is in there, and also certain practices of working in a tradition of the open web, which
Yes,
which
and
means
the role of people in the web, not as only consumers, but
yeah,
as
exactly. The web is not often considered, but that is a social media itself, with this idea that anybody may publish anytime anything online, and then those are linked, so they end up to be part of the conversation, the web itself.
Yes. But now we also go back a little bit in the history, and we go back to year 2008. When choosing a slide about this year, we decided to put the last album cover of Guns N' Roses, which was released 2008. So it's that much time ago already. The album was called Chinese Democracy. So we also touched the Hong Kong today.
Album. It's so sad album. It's really bad album, and it was probably the most expensive album ever made.
Yes, I think they spent 16 years on making this.
16 years. 7 different studios.
Yes, but our work took much less preparation, and we are going to tell now about this course that we had in Wikiversity. So Teemu, perhaps you can tell about the initial idea, how it came, and what was the motivation behind this.
Yeah, the Wikiversity was quite new project by the Wikipedia people. The same people who run the Wikipedia came up with this idea that if the Wikipedia works as an online encyclopedia, could we have also Open University, which operates in certain level with the same principles. And with Hans, we got excited about this idea, and then we proposed for Martti that we could run one course in his program, which was this course, Composing Free and Open Online Educational Resources. And the kind of the objective was quite practical and skill-based, to teach the students how to create online learning materials, how to use the open web to publish your materials in the open web. And we created this wiki page to the Wikiversity, and as Martti said, we made it open so anybody who found the course could register in it by simply writing down their username and their blog, so which blog they are using in their studies. So the threshold was very low, and it was also possible to study totally anonymously. So you could just write that I'm Donald Duck, and I study this topic with my blog in this address. And we thought that that's like a nice little thing in there. Of course, with those Martti's students who were for credits, we were matching. If I don't remember, was there anybody using a nickname, but anyway, that we knew that the Donald Duck is this or that student in Martti's program. And like Martti said, we got about 50 external students on top of the 20 students of Martti's program. Mm-hmm. And you can see it's very text-based, the course front page. Hans put it on the Netscape of that time. So that's what the web browsers looked in that time. You can see maybe in the corner where there's the table of content, there's a week. So it took 10 weeks. And for every week there was an assignment. And then I was also in that time in California. So we were having, I think, weekly video conference on Skype in that time. Skype was quite new.
It was not even Skype. It was this European software that was used in the project, this flash-based video conferencing system.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. It was this other. Yeah. But we used that, and those were just the sessions to how things are going on. They were not really teaching events. Mm-hmm. The whole idea was that students will study independently and do the assignments in weekly basis. And it included like taking photography for learning material purposes and uploading it to the right place, and then building more material around it and things like that.
To add a little bit, one interesting perspective with this course, as it took place in Wiki, was that the course was also designed and planned in a Wiki way. So Teemu made this initial schedule of course topics and listed some reading materials under these topics, and because the course was already announced in web, other interested people in Wikiversity community were also able to contribute with ideas under these topics.
Yeah, we got quite a lot of new readings from the broader community online. Plus, because it was in a Wikiversity, it was also possible to translate to other languages, which was also done, and also copied as a such. So anybody could just take the structure, copy, put another version of that on the Wikiversity and run the course themselves. And we said that in the website too, that please feel free to teach this course by yourself if you find it interesting, which is the very web way of doing things. Like you can copy everything and modify the things which you find online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at that time, end of 2000s, the web and social media landscape was different. So Facebook and Twitter were just taking off, and using blogs was more common at that time. So people had their personal web blogs over which they had control, and we designed the course that way that for each weekly topic, the participants were encouraged to write a blog post, and then they were able to read and comment each other's blogs. And every week we also made a short summary from our site and linked to most insightful blog posts.
Yeah, so our feedback was given also through a blog. So Hans and me were going through the students' blog posts, and then we were writing a summary or commentary of that and then linking to their blog. So people who were reading our blog could follow the other blogs through that place as well.
Yes.
But then we come to our new findings.
Yes, so let's go to the new findings. So basically, we talked about online learning, and in overview, the online learning is that this current trend of Zoom lecturing is really bad. We need to have this kind of online learning where students are in the active role, and with this kind of open wiki type learning environment, we have in our experience enabled to create this form, and we have developed this practice further in Tallinn University. Now we have several master programs in which important part of the courses are using this block-based learning environment, and it really changes the way students learn.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that somehow like using a block for learning doesn't sound like the most latest fashion, but I think that this putting students to document their studies and giving assignments which they do to the blog, the quality of education is much better than attending to my boring lectures on Zoom.
And another important perspective which has to be kept in mind when designing online learning is the basic ideas of the open web. So when the web was developed, and two basic principles under web, the first one was universality, which means that basically you can link to any resource in the web. And the second principle of the open web was decentralization, so that there is not one Facebook where everything happens and which controls all the communication, but anyone was able to set up their web page in their university server or on their own server or on some internet service provider. So the original web, as it was developed in 90s, was a much different place than it is now. And based on these experiments, we have come up with something that we call openness patterns for learning. We have several sets of design patterns inspired by Christopher Alexander's architecture books, but this pattern I'm showing at the moment is for open online courses. And we have identified through our studies 12 design patterns that would be followed in designing these kind of courses. And to go through them shortly, the basic pattern from which everything starts is that the course must be designed so that it is completely open for anyone. So you can just go and be a lurker, just as it was in online forums in the early days of internet, and also yeah. Please.
So just the open lurking idea is that anybody, and that's also with the idea of the university in the heart, that in practice anybody may go to the lecture room and sit quietly in there and see that what are the professor teaching for these students. And that's of course the idea of openness of the science too, that bullshit is not supposed to be totally lectures in science at least.
Yes, and to point out some other interesting patterns in this set, our experience is that we want to give more control to learners over their goals and strategies. And for this, we use a method called personal learning contract. So in the beginning of the courses, they write this kind of contract basically with themselves and with the community of other learners, where they specify what are their learning goals in the course, and then what are their strategies, how they will achieve these goals, and how they would self-evaluate themselves over achieving these goals. And then the very central part in design of this type of courses is also the design of assignments, and we try to come up with these kind of assignments that make learners reflect on their readings and on the stuff that they have experimented with. And then other participants in the course can learn from each other's homeworks. So this is the very basic design of online courses that we have developed over last more than 10 years.
There's Hans a question that have you been having, or have we been having issues with trolls?
Not really.
This was just my question, because it has been an issue now with a lot of these open access seminars and so on. And then there has been a lot of discussion with students about safe space and how to create that environment, as opposed to someone speaking, but having students involved and creating a safe space. So
yeah, unfortunately, we have not had these issues yet. So
but
fortunately,
unfortunately,
no. I like trolls, but
oh, there have been some really violent situations. So
yeah,
I don't know if it's always nice. I've experienced that. So if you
but
have someone showing dick pics, it's not fortunate.
Yeah, but is it Minna in the Zoom, or what's been the environment?
Different environments, but of course Zoom has been used a lot, and I don't agree with you, Teemu, that it should be a boring lecture by you, but it can be a safe space where students are involved and feel safe and have agency.
Yeah, I fully agree. But I still think that I agree with Hans that now when most of the Zoom teaching, how it is organized, I think the quality being going down. That's my personal impression, that most of the Zoom teaching is if we look the university sector large, is that the professors are now lecturing in there. Maybe they've been lecturing in a classroom earlier as well, but at least during the breaks and during the lunch and things like that, the students got a chance to discuss about the lectures. Now they don't have that at all. It's even more one way in big part of university or higher education at the moment.
Maybe that's true, but then the last session we just talked about very different experiences in the department.
Instead of trolls, my experience is that students from previous years continue to follow the course and to participate in the discussion. And this I experience every semester. So
yeah.
No.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I was just interesting because there was this very nice idea of open access, and now just collided with this idea of having this. So
like my attitude to the trolling or violent behavior and things like that, it should be not tolerated. But I think I also think about similar way that someone may come to my lecture room and misbehave, and then I have a ways to handle that. You know, in the worst case, I call the university cards to take the person away, and I need to build this. But is that a reason to close the education? I think that's like something to consider.
Yes, of course. It's difficult if you. Karen, please
interrupt. It must be differently being organized than the Zoom or the online lectures, so that you can reach out to students. You have to think it over. How do you do that? And I think, open access is also the finances behind it. I see also problems with it. Who is being paid? What is behind this? Well, I think it's far more complicated, but what we see nowadays.
Yeah. But Hans, you have a lot of experience of running these open access courses in Tallinn. I think you are also in a way more safe because of the language, that when you do it in Estonian, that limits a lot of trolls outside. I mean,
yes, that's definitely one thing that is guarding us. And second thing, which is quite special in Estonian context, is that if we announce the course as completely open course, we do not get thousands of interested participants. In the most successful case, I have got I have had 15 formal students and 15 students who came as open learners. And I could easily give the same feedback to those 15 additional students. So they get really equal experience as the formal students.
Plus, what I think in this type of courses, which is reducing the number interested in, because you need to work quite a lot. You need to study yourself. The assignments are challenging, and you need to write, or you need to at least produce something. It is often more demanding than taking a MOOC with just reading or looking video lectures. Many people are not committed to that amount of work on their own time.
Yeah, but it also gives a really good possibility to try out the master program before actually enrolling. So it is, we have several cases that students 1 year come and they don't participate the whole course, but they just come in some topics and do something. And then later next year they apply formally for the master's program.
You mentioned this kind of format of working through blogs. Do you have examples of that? Because that sounded really interesting.
Well, I can show my own course. It's in Estonian, but you will
never mind.
understand. So this is example of a course that has been running in the same blog for more than for 11 years. So basically, here is the whole history of the course for 11 years. These are now my students from the last year. So let's see who has been active. I think Kristel was really good in doing her posts. So here are all the blog posts she has written in this course. And not all the posts have comments, but under some posts there are comments and discussions. And we have also developed additional tools that help students to follow these discussions that are going on in the blogs. So
what was the course title, this one?
This is called Learning Environments and Learning Networks. It is introductory course in the educational technology program.
We kind of use like our school platform, my courses, a lot similarly. So yeah.
Yeah. The thing
at least me, I've kind of taken it in that kind of use.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the beautiful thing is that when everything is in open web, at some point it becomes so easy for you that you don't have to prepare anything like that much anymore. You can just you know where you have something interesting that you can link to.
Yeah. I think one difference between the open web and the My Courses is that I got to fight that the My Courses basic information is default accessible for anybody. Now you need this guest login, which is just pressing the button guest, which might make sense because they want to avoid bots to get into the content, which is very common online. But I thought now when I'm planning my course for the next week, now when we were talking with Hans again a bit about these design patterns, that I actually will just make a structure to the My Courses and then ask every student to create their own personal blog, which is in an open web. So
yeah,
I will
replicate a lot too.
Yeah. And then giving them the opportunity to use a nick, which is then giving them the privacy if they don't want to write with their own name, which I think is super important too, that the students should have a right to study anonymously online.
It should be negotiated with them at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
we are closing the time, and it's no sense that I present all these other prototypes, but I want to show you my slide at the end, which could be a kind of way to summarize this discussion, so that this is based on the idea of Roberto Berganti, who has been researching design meanings and radical innovations. And I was thinking that could this be applied to our case? And today we have discussed through 20 years history of distance learning and e-learning, so that we have this fast development of technology behind and digitalization. But is it enough? Is it a relevant way to push teaching and learning and educational models? What else we could need? What has been discussed today, this kind of drivers. Okay, coming back shortly, that this technology may produce as solutions how things can be done. It's an innovation of solutions, and this horizontal dimension is innovation of meanings. That innovation of meanings refers on ideas and actions which change the world, which is meaningful for individuals and institutions. So the question is, what are the drivers in education, teaching and learning, which could push things forward to the direction of new meanings? Technology definitely is affecting, but what it could be, and could it be, in this case, learning communities, which can be virtual or physical? What kind of pedagogical incentives we do need? And I have mentioned that we should trust on students, understand students as co-learners and co-creators, but also trust on teachers, that we have diversity of diverse expertise of teachers, which should be counted in a serious way, not understanding that everyone should use same kind of tools, same kind of platform, same kind of approaches. We should accept different kind of approaches. And also understanding that the concept of space and environment is changing, that this COVID is a nice example how our environments and spaces have changed. I have been sitting in front of my desk nearly 1 year now, and my learning space is there, but it's not, it's somewhere else, not in my home, but somewhere else. And then what is the role of design thinking? In that sense, I don't see it not so much as a method, but mindset, that how we make our ideas, thoughts visible, shareable, and for collaborative development. So it's way of building shared understanding and to develop things forward. But what are your ideas? What could be these drivers, and what do you think that what is important?
Yeah, I think with the disruptive innovation, it's good to remember that they are disruptive. That they are kind of like a, yeah, they are difficult because they are disruptive, and one should be aware of that. And it comes from the kind of idea that some new innovation will replace the old industry or something like that. But I think your drivers are are correct. I think these learning communities and design thinking and all that is in there, definitely. Will there be a radical change? I think it's hard to know. I think that if Hans, that's by the way what Hans was presenting, that's in his doctoral thesis too, presented that in a way that would be a radical change if all the universities would operate that way, and that would you could think that would like radically increase the human potential in the world if we think about it in a positive way, because also all the, well, I don't know, it's that because the transparency will then kill the bad apples from the system in a way. But I don't see that happening very soon, that all the courses will be designed according Hans' design patterns.
I also think that we need diversity of designs. So
that was my last slide, just to think that what kind of elements are around these spaces, pedagogy, technology, if we think about enhanced, active, meaningful learning. And this meaningful learning is both individual and institutional level, so that thinking learning communities and also these goals that we produce or design our program based on goals, that there are some targets. So how these targets are achieved through these elements. So dialogue, empathy, interaction, atmosphere, well-being, and so on. And Teemu mentioned that how universities are working. It's not so many years. We discussed a lot in Finland how education can be something very valuable export product, so that making degree program as for exporting and selling them, and what is the role of openness in that sense?
Yeah. Isn't there this some philosopher being saying that the only truly learned one is the self-learned, and the others being taught? And I think there's a certain wisdom in there too, that which comes to the pedagogy too, and is super difficult in university context, is that more important that you reach certain outcomes which can be measured is that you develop. That there's a, like, you start from your own level and development happens. And how make that that we are not the same. We come with a different. And for me, achievement in certain topic, mathematics, can be requiring a lot of work than for someone else. And then I should be recognized that I've been truly trying and making development in this area where I'm not very strong.
But on the other hand, we are facing the question: do we still need universities? And then this individual and community dimension. What is the balance of that? For what we need universities? And in that sense, this community element or even environment element, that what kind of environment is it? Is the kind of mental honeyspot which is attracting people to come together, whether it's virtual or physical?
I would put emphasis on community based on strongly on this past year's student experience, actually. So community and feeling of togetherness and feeling of safe space, no matter if it's an actual space or virtual space, is quite key.
I fully agree. The community, and then also the tacit knowledge, which was mentioned earlier too. Like, it just doesn't travel very well. But with the tacit knowledge exchange between in the community, that like even as a supervisor of some people, I've been thinking about this, that like how much micro feedback I give in the office space. Do you know, I go and say, you know, I show with my face that I'm in a good mood when someone tells what they've been working on.
Yeah.
Just in the coffee machine, someone tells that, yeah, I've been working on this. I said, yeah, sounds interesting. You know, I don't really give feedback, but I give feedback.
True. And I was asked from Aalto's some teacher services to talk about how to get students to put their cameras on. And that was a strange question even to me, since we kind of have this habit of having the cameras on in the courses, because it's not lecturing, but it's lecturing with discussion continuously. Yeah. And then I asked my students, how do you relate to this topic? And they said, the cameras on is the only way to create safe space in a course situation. So I thought that was pretty a nice insight from students.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, kiitos, mulle täytyy nyt mennä.
Joo, sama. Kokous alkoi jo 3.
Ja me voidaan puhua suomea.
Justi, unohtui.
Joo, me koko aika puhua suomea. Niin haluan tulla saunaan.
Tule. Joo, nyt mä laitan tämän nauhoituksen pois.
Okay, thank you.